Welcome to Transformation Heroes by Feedia, a series dedicated to CX professionals. Hello and welcome to another episode of Transformation Heroes. I'm your host, Carlos, joined by François. Hello, François.
Hello, Carlos. Good to be back.
Good to see you again. Okay, so today's episode is all about the 5 best ways to measure customer satisfaction in 2025. I wish we were in 2015. We would have incredible knowledge.
A couple of years went by, Carlos.
So as I mentioned, we're looking at 5 ways on how to measure customer satisfaction. And what I'd love to go into is firstly talking about operational goals. So our first point is about adding operational goals and using real-time satisfaction metrics, because I think a lot of times when we have customer success teams, one of the main stumbling blocks is identifying a goal that works as a business or as an operational team. So with that in mind, how do you believe, François, businesses can integrate real-time context-aware indicators in order to measure satisfaction?
Yeah, so I think, Carlos, in 2025, a lot of the CX indicators are very important for driving transformation in your organization. However, if they are not tied to the operational context, it's very, very difficult to get change inside the company. You might impress your CEO, you might impress by saying like we have a world-class NPS and so on. But when it comes to moving the needle at the operational level, you want to make sure that the KPIs that you measure and that you track are as close as possible to the business context. So having as many shades as possible of, like, for example, the NPS. So not measuring just the global NPS, but being able to dig per team, per type of products. So having that granularity is extremely important to take action.
Absolutely. What role do you feel AI has in making this a reality and being able to, dig deeper? You'd mentioned different operational teams having different shades of an NPS. What role do you feel AI would have?
Well, surprisingly, not so much. I think the first place where you need is just good data engineering, in a way that you need to have, you need to make sure that you have your CRM data. You need to make sure that you have your contextual information, so you have the right KPIs. And then where AI can play a part, it is more in terms of detecting anomalies, but it's not just tracking, but it's like detecting if there was a change that is worth investigating. And then the second point, which is a little bit, I would say, pretty new and not so used right now, is using AI to give all the context required behind a CX indicator for a given team. So, instead of showing you like, hey, here's your NPS report, or here's your NPS score, or here's your CSAT, like having using AI to explain very clearly, so LLM to explain very clearly where is the KPI coming from, what is the meaning of that KPI. Because NPS for CX professionals, we've heard it for like years. But again, if you just join a company and you are 24 years old, you might not know why it matters and whether your company is doing its mission or not. Like, there are a lot of implication behind the NPS. And so, breaking that frontier, or the gap for someone that is not really in the CX world to understand CX KPIs and to take them to action is very important. And I think AI can help there.
Great. And I mean, you've talked about a lot of different topics there. And I think we're going to go into detail on some of them because I'd love to explore it further. One of the first things you talked about was enriching feedback with business context. And so I'd love to go into a little bit more about that side of things, because traditionally, customer feedback was all about creating surveys, analyzed often in isolation. However, obviously, as you mentioned, linking the business metrics together is very, very important. And also having organizational context on customer feedback is very, very important.
Yeah, and that's where you need to have the right framework, and the only way to get action is to be as close as possible to the business context. And that's why, like, being able to integrate not with just your business tool, but with your different business systems. So again, like CRM is just one example, but you might have your e-commerce shop, that might be running on another system. So there are a lot of different business systems, and the CX function is very horizontal, right? Like you have to be connected to every single department if you want to improve the overall customer experience, right? And so making sure that you can identify very precisely which systems do you need, and then make sure that they are correlated, that they are connected with your voice of customer records. So your feedback is extremely important when it comes to measuring satisfaction in 2025. Like if you don't do this, like you will have very good numbers, but they're going to be very hard to improve, and they're going to be very hard to be used to motivate your product team, your support team, because they're going to be very generic.
Yeah. Do you have maybe an example of how metadata can be used in order to enhance the accuracy of satisfaction measurement?
Oh yeah, I have a couple. I have plenty of them. I'll take one that I really enjoy. So we work a lot with ski stations, and so one of the business, like there are a couple of systems which are important when you measure customer satisfaction in a ski resort, like in a ski, like basically when you when you go to take your kids to go skiing for a week, because there is customer experience that is within their control, and there are some customer experience which is completely outside of their control. If there is no snow, you know, like you will get a bad customer experience, and there is nothing you can do about it. So it's, you know, like that's where when it comes to interpreting that customer satisfaction, it's a very good example. We will connect, for example, with a CRM system, so you get the business context, but we'll also connect with the weather system that they use. So we know how much snow, we know if all the resort was open or not. Like this is a very easy to understand example, but you can do that in a lot of businesses. A lot of things are outside of your control when it comes to customer experience. So if you're delivering, like if you're delivering products, or you are, your e-commerce brand, and you are delivering products, like whether the driver is doing a good job or not, like it has a very big impact on your customer experience, on your customer satisfaction, but it's outside of your control. What you can control, however, which, like drivers you go, or driver companies you're going to work with. But at the end of the day, there is always, I mean, in most customer journeys, there is a part of it that is unlikely to be under your control at 100%. And so making sure that you have all the business context to identify them and go to action mode is very important.
I love that example, and I think it's a great way to summarize our second point, which is about enriching feedback with business context. Because you're using external resources, you're not just looking at your internal data. And I know, traditionally companies would be very focused on that and might not look at the correlations that are happening alongside, why they're seeing dips or increases in satisfaction. And it could be something as simple as the weather, which is great. Okay, point three. So point three in terms of improving satisfaction metrics specifically is about omni-channel feedback collection. So customers often, they interact with brands through lots of different channels. We have, social media, chatbots, in-store experiences, etc. What do you feel are the biggest challenges companies face when trying to collect customer feedback from multiple sources?
Yeah, and I think that's where the omni-channel, because it's a term that we've been on the CX world, like it's not something that is, hey, 2025, what is omni-channel? It's been there for quite some time. However, what we mean by that is, because omni-channel is basically, okay, you can contact a business through WhatsApp, through your social networks, through, like you can have a QR code in your shop, you can have it on your website. Like this is omni-channel. I think what we mean also by this, Carlos, is that the voice of customer when it comes to measuring satisfaction is not just about surveys. And I think it's more like the omni sources, in a way that it's like if you're working in CX in 2025 and the only way you assess customer satisfaction is through the surveys that you control, you are very much missing a part of the story. You're missing the part of the story that is being told on social network, that's being told on LinkedIn if you're a B2B brand, on your e-reputation, on Google reviews, Trustpilot, and so on. So what we mean by that is, like in 2025, you need to have control over like surveys, for sure, but also e-reputation, social networks, and last but not least, the support tickets. Like you have tons and tons and tons of text insight in there. And so being able to leverage them is a massive competitive advantage.
Okay. And how would AI in this context maybe help in unifying these insights together in one space?
So it's all about like natural language processing, because a lot of it, like surveys are, like you have indicators, e-reputation, you have a score from 1 to 5, you have the rating, but the rest is just pure text. It's just, like there's very rarely a score. You might have some Facebook reviews, but they're more close to your reputation than social networks, in my opinion. But the point is, a lot of this data is text, and analyzing text with a very good accuracy at scale used to be something very expensive, but now thanks to the technology that we have and with, like with the recent models, and we have them every single week, the cost of analyzing this text feedback is getting cheaper and cheaper every single day. So it's pretty amazing because you can analyze a lot more and you can make conclusion and you can find correlation between what people are saying, like when they tag your brand on LinkedIn, but also when they report a problem on the support channel, but also when they reply to a survey. And you can tie all of that information together with AI, which is very, very powerful because you don't have to do it with 100 people. You can do it with just your CX team.
Yeah. Do you feel that there's maybe some common mistakes companies might make when implementing an omni-channel feedback strategy? For example, is there a risk that you put too many things on in one place, or, you're picking up from too many different social media areas, or for me, it's a sense of feeling quite overwhelmed with the amount of sources.
Yeah. That's why you need filtering. Like you need to centralize, but then you need to filter. And so you need to filter based on the needs of that person that's connected. So again, if you're all CX side, you might want to have a look at everything. But if you're working in products, like it's very interesting to you if there are like social, there are posts and social networks that gives you feedback. If there are people on your survey that reply, if there are people on the support, like you need that, but you need that in your own business need, which is improving your product. And so it's a very different need that if you're trying to improve the e-commerce funnel conversion rates, right? It's two very different needs based on the same data. So you need filtering. I would say that's the first one. And the second one is you absolutely need to filter out the noise. So, like you have a lot of text. For example, if you use email as an inbound source, you will get a lot of, like dummy emails or stuff that are absolutely not relevant. So you need some mechanism in your system to filter out the noise, whether it's coming from social network, whether it's coming from your tickets, which you don't really have to do in surveys, because people that do reply to surveys, there is going to be some noise, but it's it's less than 1%. When it comes to social networks, support tickets and so on, there is a lot more noise.
Yeah. I think that covers point number 4 very, very well, which is about sentiment analysis and using AI in harmony in order to measure effectively. And just to give a bit more context on that, when it comes to something like NPS, which you mentioned, it's an indicator that's been used for many, many years. And now the idea of using sentiment analysis powered by AI, being ordered to decomplexify large bodies of text and being able to hone in on what's really important for a specific department, I think that's where we're going to see a lot of value.
Yeah, and as we've mentioned, like there is no score. So if you want to assess whether you're good or not, you need to make up some score at some points. And the NLP, the natural language processing, the NLP world, there is one that has been there for quite some time, but it's getting better and better and better. And there was exponential progress with the LLM in the last couple of years. It's the sentiment score. So being able to assess very precisely which are the trends and what is the correlation with the sentiments which are behind these trends. And it's very important because then you can focus on, okay, what's driving the negative trends, what's driving the positive trends, and then you can make sure that you are as precise as possible. And it will usually be very correlated with your NPS scores, with your other the CX indicators. But in 2025, like having a look at that sentiment score is a very important part of measuring customer satisfaction and driving change in your business. So these things are very much connected to each other.
Absolutely. And just speaking on that connection, we also have the business context as well. Being able to enrich the information, the sentiment you're getting with important attributes, saying, it was a cloudy day today, or it didn't snow today, adds extra level of value as well. Okay, a little bit of an offbeat question. I'm interested to see your point of view when it comes to this. Do you feel, NPS has been about for a long, long time. Now, when it comes to sentiment analysis having so much more power, do you feel that NPS might one day become obsolete?
No, I don't think so. I'm still a big, I know there are a lot of LinkedIn posts and that. I'm still a big believer in NPS for a couple of reasons. Like, I think people might not always take the time to write. And also what's very interesting with the NPS is that the question is framed in a way that you will not get the same framing with just text, because text is not, like it's, like the sentiment is also very related to, like if it's an answer to a text question, like the way you ask the question is going to have a lot of impact on the sentiment. Like between what did you love the most about our brand, or between if there is one thing that you didn't like today, Like you will get very different sentiment scores. So that's why like I think the sentiment makes only a lot of sense when you tie it to some specific topics that you want to track over different questions, that you want to track over different sources. But focusing on the topics is where it will make a lot more sense, because otherwise, based on how you ask the question, is going to have a huge impact. Whereas like where the NPS is extremely powerful, in my opinion, is the question is pretty much always the same. And so I don't believe you can benchmark it very easily with other companies, with other competitors, because the way it's being asked will have an impact. Whether it's black and white or whether you have, like red on everything except the 9 and 10 is going to have a big impact on the score itself. But I think as an internal success metric and as an internal driver for change, I think it's a very, very good KPI. And also another powerful fact about the NPS is this ability to, like to have the promoters and the detractors, like to have two very distinct groups, one where you've served your mission and the other one where you failed. And I think with sentiment, it's a little bit, we're not there yet simply because it very much depends on the source.
Yeah. It was really interesting to get your point of view, because I'm in agreement in the sense that NPS is so nice if you're like answering a mobile survey, for example, or you don't have the particular time to go into greater detail at this point, but you want to give your feedback in a concise way. Pressing a button is one of the best ways of being able to do that. And as you say, being able to split up even something as simple as pressing a button into 3 groups, into promoters, passives, and detractors, still adds and provides a lot of value. Okay, so moving on to our last point. Our last point is about AI-powered surveys and conversational feedback. So how can those help measure satisfaction in 2025? Before I ask you the question,
I think there are two things to unpack here. It's very interesting. Something at Figure we're not going into for many reasons, actually. But there are 2 things. There's one that has been around for quite some time, but it's getting more and more popular. It's basically that idea that you can, instead of, like linking to a survey page, you basically go through the survey through a bunch of interaction with the user.
Yes.
Whether it's through chatbot or WhatsApp or a messenger, it has to be some chat interface at some point, but you're chatting with a bot and, like that fills in the survey responses. So there are pros and cons to that. I don't know if that's something that's going to massively explode in the next couple of years. It's not really AI related. It's just good engineering. We'll go to the AI part in the second piece of my answer. Like, I think it's going to be here, but I think the problem with this is that the user experience is not like, it doesn't really change. Like the pain to click a link and answer on the link is, like it's pretty low. And that's why, like, even though many companies do that, it doesn't really, it doesn't really have a big impact as of right now in the industry. What's, however, very interesting, and that is the second part of my answer, is how you could have AI building the questions based on the responses that the customer provide.
Yeah.
And that is very interesting. The problem with it, so just so it's clear for everyone, it means, okay, instead of just having my NPS score, I know the industry, I know the response of the NPS, I know the customer experience because it's connected to the CRM. So now I can ask a very specific question on the product, for example, or I can ask a very specific question of like, oh, you replied 5 on this product. Please tell me what you didn't like about this product, mentioning the product very clearly, if there are improvements points. And you can make it even better if on your side as a CX, you know exactly what you're looking, you know what you're missing. Then you can tell the AI to be like, hey, I'm missing information of the product quality. Can you ask question on this? So you can give instructions, and then you can have the AI that's going to reframe the questions based on your instruction and the customer context. Sounds fun. Sounds like a lot of, again, might happen in the future, will probably happen in the future. Like some companies will probably work on that. One of the challenge, however, is in the analysis part, that it gets very messy if you want to get an overview of what's going on, because you're going to end up with a lot of different, it's going to be very hard to track over time. Like if it's just text questions, it's very much doable, but you might not want to have a survey that's just like pure text questions after text question after text questions. But if it's like scores, for example, like if the AI gives you a question that is 1 to 5 for one customer, and then the other one, it gives you a scale from 1 to 7, well, it's very hard to, it's not that it's impossible, but it makes your life harder as someone that's trying to take learnings out of the surveys. So I think the only way where it makes a lot of sense are for text questions.
Yeah, I don't think it's just that even, because even when it comes to text questions, you're going to have varied questioning. The AI will tweak its questions slightly depending on the previous answers. So you're going to have nuanced responses based on those questions.
Yeah. And keep in mind that at least the AI that we talk about, like LLM, large language model, they are non-deterministic, meaning you don't know what's going to come out of it. So I think for the sake of analysis and the sake of decision making based on what your customers are saying, there might be a play, but it's not going to be an easy one.
Yeah, definitely sounds like one for the future. Very interesting indeed. And then, I mean, the other part of the AI support when it comes to surveys is also the construction of surveys. So improving the structure, improving design. I don't know if maybe you can talk on that a little bit on how we can.
So that's so interesting. That's something we do at Figure already. But I think there are pros and cons again. So the point, so it's clear for everyone, is if you have 20 surveys already in your platform, like if you want to build a new one and you give clear instructions, like you don't have to start from scratch because you can have the AI generate the questions based on what you're looking for. And it works very well. There is no doubt about it. Now the value I think is very limited. Like I think there's a lot more value in terms of the analyzing what's coming out of it. So like based on the large volume of text that you get, based on finding low signals in your customer journeys. Like I think there's a lot more value in there. That's my personal standpoint, my personal point of view on that. Whereas like building surveys is painful, but it's not extremely painful. When you do it, it's done. I don't think it's going to I don't think it's going to revolutionize the CX world. Whereas like on the analyzing parts, I think it is currently revolutioning the CX industry.
Makes sense. All right, great. Well, that wraps up the 5 points that I wanted to cover today. Just to give a little bit of summary for our listeners. So number 1 is about adding operational goals and real-time satisfaction metrics. So using KPIs that you track as close as possible in order to, link it to your operational needs, with having AI to be able to be there to detect anomalies. Number 2 is about not just using surveys, but enriching your feedback with the business context. So being able to link maybe your CRM with an external resource, for example, in order to get deeper insights to your feedback. Number 3 is about using an omni-channel maybe source of feedback collection. So using multiple ways of picking up satisfaction from social networks, from e-reputation, from support tickets, and then with the use of AI, being able to distill that information in an easy to understand way so we can take action on what our customers are saying. Number 4 is about sentiment analysis, using AI to work in harmony together. So being able to assess precisely the trends that are happening, and then using sentiment to analyze the trends and why they are occurring. So being able to not just see the topic name, but understand why that topic name is happening. And then final point is using AI-powered surveys and conversational feedback. So we might not be quite there yet at this stage in 2025. The impact is relatively low, but we can lean on AI when it comes to constructing surveys and being able to support us to be efficient in delivery.
Thanks, Carlos. Very clear.
Thank you, François, for your time. See you in the next one.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.